So something that Democrats bring up a lot is uh, is that red states have higher crime rates, and that the most violent, the most criminal city in the world is in a red state. Okay, but the places in these red states where the crime is occurring are in Democratic cities, Democratic counties. So it's just explaining to them, the obvious correlation between democratic governance and crime rate. All right, for populations, and all right, for people to vote Democrat, coming from places where there are high rates of crime, and for people of certain traits that have high rates, like statistically high rates of crime, for them voting Democrat. For unemployed people voting Democrat, for impoverished people voting Democrat. And then obviously for scandalous business people voting Democrat. So the comparison was Massachusetts and Oklahoma. And he was comparing education statistics, poverty statistics, and we also compared crime statistics. And he compared quality of life statistics and like healthcare and stuff. So the question basically was, why does Massachusetts have a lower overall rate of crime than Oklahoma, even though it's all Democratic, when Democrats are obviously, they obviously have a correlation with crime when you look at the cities and their policies. And I think the answer is obvious. Okay, it has to do with these people are more wealthy. Okay, the wealthiest states in the nation are Democrat. Now, just because they're wealthy doesn't mean they're educated and logical and well behaved. Okay, there's a lot of scandalous business practice that goes on. A lot of manipulation and stuff like that. So I think it's obvious that just they represent the scandalous business class. Okay, that these people don't really get caught for their crimes. And when you talk about a city, there's a polarization of poverty and big business. Okay, and there's crime that goes on in each. But I think it's obvious that business-related crime, big business-related crime, they don't get caught as much. Okay, they have lawyers, they're educated, they practice, they have finances for briberies, okay, but they still want to employ policies that help them get away with stuff, so they vote Democrat. Now, the Republican regions inside of these blue states have low crime rates, okay? It's usually rural, working class areas. People that make an honest living, not, swindling business people or, unemployed criminals. And I'm not saying you shouldn't strive for, economic prosperity and education and stuff, but you should recognize the prevalence of manipulation and scandalous behavior in the business world. Okay, the lack of integrity, the oppression, all right, that could lead to somebody, winding up in the working class if they don't want to participate in that kind of behavior. Okay, I know somebody that was involved in, a big business, the pharmaceutical business, okay, and she quit because of oppressive criminal demands. All right, she wound up in the working class, working out of school. So these red states, they're impoverished, okay? They're usually rural, they have a lot of rural areas, a lot of working class, areas, not big cities and stuff. Less dense populations. They don't have a bunch of universities and stuff around, and you know, but the places where the crime is occurring, for the most part, is in these Democrat cities within these red states. It's a combination of the poverty, the poverty of the state, all right, the poverty of the city within the state, and the demographic of the city, the the ideological tendencies of the people in the city and stuff. So it's like, look, these red states are more poor. There's an obvious correlation with poverty and crime. Okay, the red states aren't poor because they have bad governance. Okay, they're poor because they lack a population. Okay, they lack being in a prime location. Okay, they lack historical financial prosperity. Like being involved in trade and industry and innovation and all this stuff. Okay, it's a lot of rural stuff, agricultural type stuff. So just a combination of the poverty and the city, the city being corrupt and stuff like that. It just leads to a higher crime rate. All right, and the city votes Democrat. Okay, that the areas with the high crime rate vote for the people that are trying to, help them get away with the crimes. It's such an obvious correlation. So, why are these wealthy states voting Democrat? Because they're trying to get away with crime. Okay, business-related crime. Well, both, gang-related and, lower class-related crime, but also business-related crime. All right, these aren't working class people, okay? The people that live outside of the cities in these blue states, okay, it's not like Massachusetts has a large working class rural scene, okay? It's still full of a bunch of wealthy people, probably a bunch of scandalous people that vote Democrat. So just the argument of like the crime rates in the blue and red states and the poverty rates, and where is the crime occurring? The crime is occurring in the Democrat regions of all of these places, all right? In the Republican regions of all of these places, the crime rates are low. In the Democrat regions, it's high. It's such an obvious correlation. Okay, just because these rich states that have all this, I don't know if you call it blue or white collar crime, but all this, business related crime that they don't get caught for, okay, doesn't mean that, it's so stupid. Anyways, I was looking at other statistics. As far as land area covered by Republican governance in the United States, it's over 80% of the land in the United States is in Republican-run counties. Okay? Most of the counties in the United States are run by Republicans. I think it was also like 80%. And most of the working class votes Republican. Okay? Most of the unemployed people vote Democrat and commit crimes. So just because the red states have more, like a higher crime rate than the blue states, it doesn't mean that the Republicans are the criminal party. Okay, it's the Democrat regions of these red states that have these high crime rates. It's just a combination of the poverty due to the state being mostly rural, and the dynamics of criminality within a city that causes these high crime rates, and the democratic governance of the city, or the influence of the democratic aligned population within the city. And it's well known that rich people don't get caught for their crimes, that they get these lawyers, and they say that they can do whatever they want and stuff. So don't be surprised that Massachusetts, they're not really getting caught for their business-related crimes and stuff. So what you see is a 60% higher crime rate in blue counties, but a 23% higher crime rate in a red state overall, with most of that occurring in the blue county within the red state. So it obviously just has to do with the wealth of the blue states. Okay, it's a bunch of rich people getting away with crimes, being involved in swindleless business. That's why they're voting Democrat. and the regions within the red states that vote Democrat have the crime